Attention all operators on countdown 1. This is the final go, no go for flight 2 of Starship. Again, our T0 is at 7 a.m. Central. Raptor 1.
Go.
Raptor 2.
Go.
Stage 1.
Go.
Stage 2.
Go.
Copy, go for flight. Clock is rolling. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have liftoff.
Stretcher cut off. Stage separation.
Attention all operators on countdown 1. This is the final go, no go for flight 2 of Starship. Again, our T0 is at 7 a.m. Central. Raptor 1.
Go.
Raptor 2.
Go.
Stage 1.
Go.
Stage 2.
Go.
Copy, go for flight. Clock is rolling. 10, 9, 8.
What's going on, everyone? How you doing?
Hey.
What's going on? Good. Welcome to episode 2 of The Briefing, Operation Defend the North, as we get Alex, the Chaos Engineer, to join us as well. Matthew, what's going on? Roshan's in the house. James is here. Whoa. A suit again, or a jacket. You're looking too good. What's going on?
I know. With all these interviews you have me doing, man, I gotta look the part.
Looking good. And look at Alex. Look at that hair. I don't know what he uses for shampoo. So I got to ask right off the bat, Alex, what kind of shampoo do you use?
My wife's.
Best answer in the world. Matthew's in a very interesting little space there. Everything's all, you look like you're in some sort of submarine or some sort of rocket ship.
Just in my home office, yeah.
Nice. James, how you doing as well?
Doing awesome, thank you.
Wonderful. And Roshan is joining us as well. Many of you know her from ODTN News, who's going to kick us off as well today. So Roshan, thanks for joining us as well. All right, so we have come back. Cyberx team has come back from a little bit of a road trip where we went from Ottawa to Calgary to Vancouver. We did a little short pit stop in Hamilton, but that's for another day. And now we're gearing up for one of the biggest events that we feel that it's going to be, which is Toronto. And we're joined here with the crew right here that has been a part of the journey over the last couple of months, actually 6-7 months. And so I'm going to kick it off with Ali. And just want to, how do you feel after this little excursion we did across Canada?
Great question. Is it Alex or me?
You know what?
Alex, go first. Install the chaos, and then I'll try to settle it down.
Already, it has begun.
All right. Great, but also exhausted. And I posted something on LinkedIn about, like, literally tabletop should have a bit of a wear on you after you do one or two back to back, but also really humbled because of not only players expressing their experience on LinkedIn, on their blogs, etc., but also a lot of audience members, which are really humble, really cool to read.
And no, I mean, one of the things that was interesting to see for us as a team was we were consumed for the last 3 weeks in development, production, right down to even execution. Alex, you saw that chaos. Ali was part of that chaos, and Roshan was right in the center of that chaos. Matthew, I mean, you're new to this whole thing is brand new, and one of the most powerful parts of Operation Defend the North is you talk about it all the time to people, and and one of my jobs is to always explain it to people. And then you send them a YouTube video, and they're like, "Yeah, yeah, I get it." And then when they actually witness it, they're like, "Holy, shut the front door." Matthew, how was it?
It was good. I mean, desktop simulations of a security breach don't create the same stressors and anxiety that it does in reality. And being on camera, being in front of your peers, having a large audience helps add that into the simulation. So I found that to be really good. Having chatted with some of the people in the audience, or even some of the kids that we had come by in the session that we did in Vancouver, the visibility into the kind of conversations that happen at a leadership level was all news to them. And that's something I didn't really appreciate in the moment, but I thought it was good, right? It was a lot of theatrics, but that helps add to the pressure on the participants, which is necessary to sort of make this valuable, right? So,
Yeah. And the theatrics, speaking of theatrics and speaking of the young defenders of the North, Roshan, last year we had Young Defenders of the North, and what for the viewers, Young Defenders of the North is we take university or high school students, we bring them in while Operation Defend the North is happening in an area. There's another area where there's a hackathon or a simulation where it's keyboards and they're having fun. And Roshan, one of the things you get to do is be a part of that. From last year to this year, from the students that were there and the improvements that were made. Tell us a little about Young Defenders of the North.
Yeah, so last year we had about like maybe 70 kids participate from all across Vancouver in different high schools. And we worked together with the Soccer Vancouver chapter to make it happen. And it went amazing. You know, it was my first time hosting hackathon, and it was high school students. So even now, even when I was watching them run around a little bit, I was like, oh, okay, so I have to play mom here today, because I have to be like, okay, sit down, okay, now go eat. But the fun thing about this year was that they actually brought, like, the students were there not by a yellow school bus, or it wasn't technically a part of the school. They came by themselves, so their parents dropped them off and picked them up, and there was about 100 of them. And the number increased because those young defenders went home last year and told their friends, and then their friends wanted to come down this year too. So I actually didn't even know, I thought they were coming on their school buses, but when I found out that they were doing carpooling and they were getting picked up by their parents, that made it so much more satisfying, because I was like, they're taking their time out to come. They're not being forced to come as a school trip. They're wanting to come.
Yeah, and that's the big part, right? People wanting to come. And one of the other things, the most powerful thing is when people are wanting to stay right to the end. Normally we host a lot of events and we all go to many events, and a lot of times people have left by the end. So it was interesting to see. Ali, you've kind of been from the beginning, from province of Ontario, where we held Operation Defend the North in June 2 years ago, to today now. What's been your favorite out of all of them? I know all of them are, but what has been your favorite out of all of them?
The last session that we did in Vancouver.
Just right now.
Yeah, the lessons learned module, because there were insights that came out, not just about, all right, what could have happened over here. When Alex and Shrey introduced that shorting technique, I thought that was pretty unique. But in that lessons learned, you heard things about the situation itself, but then you got so much feedback from the audience. And there's one that I really wanted to share. So this one individual, and I don't remember their name, came up to me and said, this was great, all of that stuff, but I have something to tell you. And I said, sure, tell me, I'm all ears. And they said, in Vancouver, in that scenario, the CEO caricature was of a female CEO. And obviously, as part of the narrative and the edutainment, we're poking fun at the CEO. And this guest told me they understood why we're doing that, but said, be mindful. There are very few female CEOs, and you chose to attack a female CEO. Something to think about. And you know what? That's powerful for me, because it's not a criticism, it's something on, hey, be mindful of these things. But thirdly, it shows that people feel that they have that safe space to bring this up to us. And that's when you know people are in it, people are getting value out of it, and they want to see it become more and more and more inclusive. So that was that moment when I was like, yeah, I'm so glad that in that final session we let go of all of the prompts and we just spoke to people. And that, if you think about it, in conferences, in those kind of sessions, that really, really does not happen a lot. So for me, that moment was the most favorite and precious moment of all of the experiences I've had so far.
And this is something that's very like shared, very similar to sports, right? And all of Canada just got to witness the bottom of an inning where one play changed everything, and it was those lessons learned right at the end that encapsulates it. That happens in hockey, basketball, football. It's all about inches and yards and seconds, and then when you get to the end of that marathon and sit back and say, "Wow, we should have done this." That is the most powerful part of a tabletop exercise. That is the essence of it. And James, for you, you've debriefed over the last few weeks now from Calgary. Like, what was the sentiment and feelings about it now that you've able to absorb that in? Because this is our first time talking really after Calgary.
Well, yeah, there's a few things. I mean, one of the things is never dealt with something at this scale before, so it was really interesting to be able to get involved that way. I think the sentiment was a couple of things. I'm going to talk about the sentiment that was in the room around me. Actually, some of the comments we saw is, we would have had to travel for something of this scale, something of this nature, for us to actually train in. So that was something I saw consistently, time and time again, people saying that, and they said, now it's here, but this is great. So I think there is that sentiment of the value of being able to do this at this scale, the value of being able to do this with a bunch of other cybersecurity professionals. I know for me too, it was quite an eye opener. With Ollie being able to kind of lob things at me, and when we were going through stuff, it was good, because it was, I'm going to say the subject matter for us was not my normal wheelhouse. So it had to really force me to think and kind of think on my feet. Whereas if it was a tabletop that may have been with my own team, we're going to know our stuff quite well. So you start to have some complacency. So not having that complacency, having that kind of, being off on the back foot, so to speak, kind of changed things for me. It was a great experience that way.
And Alex, I mean, Vancouver, I mean, I love Toronto. Toronto's like, but British Columbia is the greatest place in the world, I believe, from a everything standpoint. I'll say it on the record. And Alex, Vancouver has been the crown jewel of Operation Defend the North, and it's bluntly, it's not only just the people and the environment, it's the dialogue room, that room that you were able to pick out of a hat and say, this is the place we should host Operation Defend the North. From you now, like just being in that journey of being a part of everything Operation Defend the North, how has it been, the sentiment and the feedback from last year to this year?
Well, and for a lot of people that might not know, like we did do one in April this year, and then we did a subsequent one in October. And just like when you go through an incident, you are going to improve. You're going to do iterations of whatever you were doing to the next version. And we've seen that through and through all the events, Ottawa, Calgary, Vancouver. So I love seeing that, because it really does show that a tabletop exercise, and even also running an event of a tabletop exercise, you're running things live. Things will work, things will not work, and you've just got to go with it. And between Ali and myself, like we have this very good yin and yang on how to direct the scenario and the players and whatnot, and like we keep on evolving that relationship as well. So super fun, and loving providing even more and more fidelity to these storylines to make them more believable, more interesting, and more.
Yeah, and
close to
when
home.
speaking close to home, Matthew, yeah, if you could change something about this, you could snap your finger and go, I wish I could turn back the hands of time, and I wish we could have done this, or it could have gone this way, or this variable I would have changed. Just kind of reflecting on that for a moment, what would those be? And what would that look like?
Yeah, I've thought a few times about what I would change if I had the opportunity, but it's very difficult to, in one context, show everything that goes on inside of a security breach. I mean, you have leaders that are representing functions. Those functions are all busy, right? Things are happening in parallel. There's a technical component. Like, this could be very tech focused, or it could be very leadership focused, or it could be, whatever. I think it does already strike a nice balance between all of those worlds. Some of the things that I think could change in the future, but I don't know if it produce a better output, would be having like an incident response lead, which would be more sort of akin to what I would see, or have someone play the role. We discussed this, like have someone play the role of external legal counsel or external breach counsel, or the role of cyber insurance, and have them start to take control and push their narrative and their interests as you would see play out in a large breach. And that can add an interesting dynamic.
Yeah. It's and one of the challenges we face, Matthew, all the time, and for the viewers out there, is how do you put an event on like this in such a short period of time? Because at the end of the day, you have breaks, you have breakfast, you have lunch, you have theatrics in the middle, and then you have a lot of discussion. But how do you get to the meat and crux of everything is difficult. And one of the things that we've been sort of testing with is, can you do this for 3 days? Imagine for a moment, and Ali, I would ask you, now reflecting, the first one that we did was 3 days, and then boom, we've been going day. Like, that's really Operation Defend the North. Would you do a 3-day? And is it something that audiences can sort of accept? Is it something that senior leaders can come and enjoy for 3 days? How would you do that?
Yeah, look, the 3-day experience, it puts a lot of weight on the core moderator. So the first thing that I'll say is, from a logistics standpoint, you need to have at least 3 different moderators who are taking 3 different tones, right? That's the first thing. Of course, the first iteration when we did it, look, any idea that CyberX brings me, I'm ready to roll with it. And one of the reasons a lot of people have asked me, so how do you just roll with it? I'm ready to roll with it because I'm not afraid to laugh at myself. If I make a mistake, I'm ready to admit to it. In Vancouver, in the first session, I forgot 1 or 2 names. And guess what? It can happen in a real incident. I forget your name. So I've got Alex telling me, hey, you got the wrong name. Cool. I'm fine with that. So yes, I could roll with it, but if I look back at it, if you want to do it over 3 days, you need people with different personalities taking the lead. One day it's me starting off with a little bit of the nervousness, then it's Alex maybe trying to bring it all together, and then maybe someone like a Matthew who's just trying to say, all right, what do we need to get done, and how do we move forward from this? So you need those different personalities. Can it and should it be 3 days? I think so. But in order for that to work, there have to be some very, very key exercises that are not just played out in our conversations, but that people are doing in real time. Now, how do you take what people are doing in real time and weave it into your exercise and into your final narrative? That is something to be determined. But if you look at something like, what's that show called, Roshan, Big Brother, where the audience can pull in and then do all of those things, maybe there's something over there. But Maddie, if I have to be brutally honest, I think 3 days can work. I think if you take that Big Brother kind of like mentality and how people watch and get engaged, something can come out of this in that fashion. 1 day is very short. We gloss over a lot of things, and we know that. So I think the future instance of this is, yes, a couple of 1-dayers, but then the deeper ones are those 3-day sessions. I think that's the organically inevitable state that you're going to land into. But you've set the perfect launch pad for this, buddy.
See, and last night I I had dinner with someone very interesting who for the last 20 years for the United States government works in crisis communication. And she deals with things from solar flares to hijacked airplanes scenarios, all the way down to a helicopter falling right there, right now. She's like, what happens right now? And one of the questions she asked me yesterday, and I'm going to throw it out to everyone just because she said one of the exercises that they run is, for example, you're the ambassador for Canada in the United States, and a plane has been hijacked and it lands at Washington Airport. What do you do?
I'm the
Anyone wanna
ambassador.
take a
I'm on the
stab?
plane.
No, you're just ambassador in the United States, sitting on ground, and a plane is hijacked, and a commercial plane, and it lands at the airport in the United States. What do you do?
I have thoughts. Alex,
Call a friend.
call a friend.
Anyone?
What's the airline?
So, what's the airline? Oh, that's a good one. It's actually, I'm going to give everyone a hint. It's Air Canada.
So it's
Air Canada.
territorial.
I would think as an ambassador that I've got certain lines of communication that I can leverage, right? To start communications going between the countries. So that'd be step one. I escalate it up, make sure the Canadian government and whoever I'm responsible to is aware, and then start communications with the other side.
Yeah, Matthew's got it bang on. But the first question would be, how many Canadians are on there? Because as the ambassador for Canada, your first question is that. Because if there's 0 Canadians on there, why are you even talking? And so one of the most powerful things in that I learned, and just thinking about it, and I went through this exercise with a couple of different scenarios, which was very unique, was in an incident, there's a lot of chaos. But how do we bring that chaos over 3 days? And one of the things we did at Operation Defend the North, the first one, is we talked about emergency services and hospitals. What would happen to a hospital? What would happen to the pharmacy? What would happen to, because it's not just cyber tabletop exercises, because that's maintained within cyber. There's a million other things that impact. And I think that's what brings that intensity over 3 days. And so, James, a question for you. Being a part of Operation Defend the North here, and you're coming to Operation Defend the North in Toronto, which is on December the 4th, which we're really excited about. Coming in, what are your expectations of coming into an Operation Defend the North in Toronto?
Well, I've seen a bit of the game. I've seen a little bit behind the scenes. So I think for me, it's just going to be that intensity and just how do we keep that intensity rolling? Because I think that's what makes it real. So I'm expecting coming in and I know that Ollie probably kind of soft tossed me a few of these things this time. I'm fully expecting.
I think I'm hoping Ali and Alex do not.
I think the training wheels are going to be off, and I'm going to be.
We got to put you on the microscope.
Fly or fall. So
100%. We got to put you on the burner there. So Rashawn, if you could tee us up for Operation Defend the North, what's going to happen? What can you tee us up with a summary?
Without giving away too much?
Don't give away too much, please.
Okay, I would say, is this tricky? I feel political.
You have to be very diplomatic, please.
Well, we've been building a narrative. There's a reason we've been kind of on tour. And there's a lot of thought that goes behind these scenarios. And, since Operation Defend the North Toronto is the last one, you need to be able to go out with a big bang, right? So
can you take us from Ottawa to Calgary to Vancouver? Just summarize it so for the audience that are just watching for the first time.
Sure. So in Ottawa, we had a breach on the IRCC. And the chaos that comes within. I bet our chaos engineer and our moderator could describe it way better than I could. And then in Calgary, we had a power grid outage. And then in Vancouver, we had a supply chain compromise. And now I don't want to give away what it is because I feel like that's not good. But what I will say is that everything comes together in Toronto. And the storyline still holds up and it all makes sense.
Alex, can you add to a little bit of that color and a little bit of that black and white she just gave me, but not giving it away?
It's hard.
Again, what I will say is the initial concepts are based off of some recent cyber events, and we're just going to add a little bit of flavor and spice to them. But this one, again, and something sort of like really core to Operation Defend the North's, focus and drive is really to increase the awareness of the impacts outside of IT, obviously, but even outside the business. Like, how does it actually affect the average citizen? And that's why they have on the counter or on the screen a financial cost counter that is totally not arbitrary. But like, it is to show that impact of what these cyber incidents cost, because I think that is still somewhat not obvious unless you actually experience one. And just to zoom out, Korean telecom just got hit by a cyber attack in the last year or so, and a friend that works there, their entire massive multi-million-dollar project just got canceled because they had to spend and reallocate that money on the response and then the remediation. So like, there are serious cascading consequences from incidents that we increase that.
Matty, can I jump in very quickly?
Please. And this is open. Please, everyone jump in as much as you want.
So leading from where Roshan and Alex very eloquently took us, I'll tell this much to the audience. Less than 24 hours ago, Belgium airport had to shut down for a period of time because of unknown drone activity near the airport and near military bases. Why is Belgium important? Headquarters of NATO, headquarters of the EU. Where have these drones come from? Nobody knows. Now imagine that, but think about what is Toronto important about. We've traveled to all of the different major hubs, not all of them, but most of them. Everything comes together in Toronto. Toronto holds something very special. And I think that's where I'll leave it at.
And so in building this narrative out, as yourself and Roshan and Alex, and for those out there as they try to build out tabletop exercises, what are some of the advices that you guys would give? But I want to start off with James first. James, that you would give for those that are watching, things that they could do to help improve and make a better tabletop experience for their staff.
Two things. So I think really first, if this is your first time, start small. Start something that's relatively within your wheelhouse, so you can see how you kind of function within it. Understanding that it's not it's not going to be as high fidelity. It's not going to be as good as the real thing. And then from there be able to okay, we've done this now. Let's pivot into something we don't know. Work gamify it a bit. Add other teams and add other stakeholders, and make sure that you don't always have the same set of people always in the room, because that's not how an actual event will run. You won't always have all your A team or that. You might have some people that have been away, or you might have somebody that's coming in from that's in a different department, something that maybe your chief legal isn't around, so you have their backup in as an example. So those are the couple things I would say.
Yeah, and Matthew, quick question for you as well, and that is, regarding tabletop exercises, what has your experience been in the past? How many have you ran? How often do you run these, and what do you like about tabletop experiences that you run?
Admittedly, the number is low. Part of the challenge here is, depending who's involved, you want to look good. Like, you don't want to step into a simulation of an area you're responsible for with the leadership team for the organization and look like a fool and not have your ducks in a row. And so there's some resistance to doing this, I think, on a broader scale in an organization until you feel ready. And that's not the right approach. The right approach is to do it and figure out what's not working and fix it, right?
Absolutely.
So I think that's a big piece of it. But there's different versions of a tabletop simulation that you can take on. Like, to James' point, do one internal, do a highly technically focused one. How are we going to recover? Let's go through a cloud instance outage, or let's look at a need to restore our tenant, or to have communications are down, and how do we get everyone together and bring the troops together if we don't have the ability to communicate with them? Like, stuff like that is really meaningful. It's internal to the technology or security team.
Yeah.
But I think a point that this Defend the North operation sort of drove home is the learnings in the execution and raising visibility and getting people thinking about things, whether you're ready for it or not. So it's not meant to be a rehearsal of a highly polished exercise. It's just a state of the nation and get the data and move forwards.
I couldn't agree more. And Maddie, since you opened the invitation to jump in, so I shall jump in. What Matthew just said is, I think, something that we need to put on every welcome module for any advisor coming in. And I'm not trying to sound egotistic when I say this. Listen, you might be a CISO, and I don't care of which organization. Good for you. At the end of the day, you're human. It's not like you're going to walk into an incident at this organization, call it Organization A, with gross revenue of $200 million per year. It's not like when the incident happens, you already have been in the CISO role for 2 years or 3 years. It could be day one and an incident happens and you're there. So yes, if you're feeling a little bit like, I don't know anything, yes, that is very real. All right. These incidents don't come with an invitation card and a save the date. It is going to happen even if you're on the last day before retirement or one day into the job. And you have to realize that that is a very real thing. What I really appreciated what Matthew did, and I encourage everyone when the CyberX team loads up the videos, is watch Matthew's transition from his first session to his second one. Suddenly in the second one, Matthew, like this entity enters into Matthew, possesses him, and he starts to really live the role. And for me, that's great because I can step off the gas a little bit, and the humor is also coming from somewhere else. But suddenly, Matthew's energy and Vivek's energy rubs off on others, and people start coming into it. So what Matthew just said, I think, and Roshan, for your 2026 onboardings, I know you're going to get, I invite others to chair this alongside Alex and everyone else. I want to participate more than anything else. What Matthew just said should be on the front page of it. Very well said. Matty, back to you.
Yeah, no, one of the things in chaos, and we have the chaos engineer here, but I have a theory and I want to hear chaos's engineer's theory, and anyone else, I'll open it up to you, is at a time when there's chaos and you're in a high pressure situation and shit has hit the fan, you kind of have to have multiple split personalities to deal with every single situation. So you have to use comedy, dark comedy, romantic comedy, funny comedy, I don't know, all sorts of types of comedy to get through what you're going through. From a chaos engineer standpoint, I mean, you are the DNA of chaos. How do you define chaos, number one? And number two, how do you deal with chaos?
So, like, one of the first tabletops I ever attended as an audience member was run by a big law firm and a big four consultancy and a cybersecurity company. And it had a bunch of big names as players, but for the next 3 hours, we watched them read pages of paper. And it was so linear, and I was bored out of my mind, and I felt like no one would get anything from this because it's not reflective of what actually it feels like when, like, yeah, you may have an incident response plan, but if this is your first time looking at it, it's sort of useless. Like, you're going to have, the adrenaline's so high that you're getting that tunnel vision. You're not really able to read and comprehend big documents. And these tabletop exercises are supposed to be building that muscle memory based off of what we said we want to do. Now let's do it and start building that repetitiveness so that you don't have to rely on it. The chaos is in twofold, is to really ensure that you get that it is not linear and the cyber threat is not following your plan. You need to go home at 5 or have a weekend. So a lot of the chaos we put in there is because, I guess, like, when you look at these problems, you're just like, oh, well, let's do X, Y, and Z, and then we're out of the woods. But in reality, it never works that way. So the primary reason is to create challenge and see, create a fork in the road and see how the players react to it. And, really love seeing that, to be honest. And that also, the second reason is it's very entertaining. And that's why we don't have a lot of attrition of these events, because people really do want to see both, some resolution who, it was in the library with the candlestick, or they want to see, what other dramatic incidents are going to be there. And mainly because from, every time I have, I get these short breaks in between these modules and talking to people, and they're like, I totally dealt with that situation. And like, yeah, haven't we all? So I really, love when people feel the connection with our scenarios and and our chaos.
When it comes to role playing, one of the things that you have to do, Roshan, is you have to paint chaos. You're actually creating chaos because you are your OD10 News. You're Roshan Khan from OD10 News, and one of the jobs you've had over the last couple of years is you're a news reporter that's on site, and you're in front of a hospital. And funny enough, next week we have a call where we're going to plan out scenes for Operation Defend the North Toronto, to plan out where we're going to plan out the chaos for the viewers. So when you do these, when you switch into that role as a reporter, help us identify like what goes through that and the chaos that you have to show the viewers.
So it's funny, as Alex was talking too, I was thinking about it. It's funny that we're calling it chaos when it's so tediously and meticulously planned, but not in like a scripted way, but like everything that goes into this event is so tediously planned. So whether that's like our meeting next week is going to be about locations to shoot at and what it's going to be and what angle it's going to be at. So all of those things matter. But when I'm doing the news reports, it's a little bit hard because they are going to be what stabilizes every module that we talk about. And so, and you can't always plan where the conversation's going to go because these are industry leaders doing what they do best. They're responding to an incident, but this is not a scripted, this is not a scripted thing. So there's no script that they're following. So it could go anywhere. So when we're thinking about the news reports, we need to think about every possible outcome and then also what we want the audience and our players to know. But yeah, it's funny that we're calling it chaos when, the result is an organized chaos, but it's so meticulously and tediously planned.
Yeah, failing to plan. I know Ali. It's one of Ali's favorite, I think, quotes. Failing to plan is planning to fail.
Oh, well said. You remembered it, Maddie. I have a question for you.
Yes.
I had to travel with you in Calgary and Vancouver, and made every Starbucks stop with you. And the order was iced caramel macchiato, upside down, light on the ice. Did that macchiato taste different in Calgary, Vancouver versus Toronto?
The beauty of meticulously planning and if you have and organizations like McDonald's, McDonald's, Starbucks, they're able to perfect things. So it doesn't matter. You can have this drink in Dubai. I've had it. You can have it in Calgary, Vancouver, or Toronto. It tastes different. I think what really, to answer your question in the comedy way now, is the milk is different everywhere, though. That's one thing I can always tell, milk. And so it's very funny, yes. Ali and I had the opportunity to spend 4 or 5 days, and one of the things I was able to see was his preparation leading into these things. He would get very, like, what's the word, Roshan?
Immerse.
Yeah.
Ali gets possessed. I know he was talking about the entity entering Matthew, but I have never seen somebody just like, and then they wake up and they're in it.
And what's great is, and for the viewers, for those watching, some behind the scenes here, because we have Roshan here as well, is we do something called a run of the show the night before. James saw that. He was a part of that in Calgary. Matthew, next year, hopefully, we're there a couple of times. You're more than welcome. We would love to have you to be a part of the chaos. Yeah. And Alex is there. Is the night before, Ali has to sit, and we as a team go through every single thing meticulously planned. Mm-hmm. And when we get to his part and we say, okay, and he's live now, he does something very funny. I don't think I'll say it today what it is, but he does something funny. And the next day, then you see him like literally 7 hours later at 9 a.m. sharp, dressed up, ready to go, about to paint chaos. He's in the zone. So Ali, I got a question for you, and this is for advice for the viewers. How do you like that 5 minutes before or 1 minute before when the lights are down and the intro starting and all of that? Tell us what you're going through in your head, or what you're doing, or what you're saying, or what you're feeling.
So there's a lot of things that to unpack there, but it's very simple and straightforward for me. Whenever I go live, okay, this is just a chat and we're having conversations. But the second I know that I'm in front of an audience, I always tell people that if you are the keynote, if you are the person that is running the show, so to speak, you've got to find a spot in the audience that relates to you. Now, for me, what I always do is when I get on stage and I know that the camera is going to go on, I picture my parents in the audience. And the minute they're there, I have that sudden jolt of pride because I know what they would feel to see me here. So when I imagine that there, remember immigrant parents who sent me to Canada, this was what they dreamt of, right? I've had imposter syndrome for such a long time. I've always second guessed myself, if not triple guessed myself. Now I'm here. And then you see your parents in the audience, albeit metaphorically, it boosts you, it gives you that energy. Now that's me. Some other people might have someone else in the crowd. You might have a certain topic that really gets you going. And for other people I've seen 5 minutes before going on stage on their earpods, they're listening to a particular song. One of my favorite cricketers, Virender Sehwag, when people would ask him, you were facing a bowler at 165 kilometers per hour, 21 yards away. How were you staying calm? And he would say, every time the bowler was running in, I'd be singing this song in my head. And then when the ball came and I saw it, I just gently flew into it. And whatever had to happen, happened. So it is literally about getting yourself in that state of mind. Everybody has a different way of doing it. For me, it's always been that 5 minutes, even that 2 minutes before, you'll always see me. I won't be talking at that point. I'll just take
James, what do you do?
what I do.
What do you do to get in the state of mind?
So for me, sounds really weird, but Eminem's "Lose Yourself" runs through my head in a loop just before. That's the thing to kind of get me pumped and kind of get me in the space to be able to talk. But then it speaks very similarly to what Ali describes. That for me, it's okay. You're in front of people. Find your humanity, find your humility in front of them, and come back as as much as you're trying to hype and get into the mode that you need to be in. It's taking come back to your humanity and how make sure you're portraying that back to the people you're in front of.
His palms are sweaty, knees are weak, arms are heavy. Alex, how do you deal with that moment?
My song is Black Keys, I Got Mine, usually on the walk towards whatever I'm about to do. I over practice, I overthink about it, but then that last 30 minutes, I detach from all that I have to rely on and just go for it. And I do find I over prepare and realize that, that is sort of a life raft I have to let go of and just, for lack of a better description, freestyle what I am going to do speaking wise. And ODTN, I remember you told me the first one in April, no, don't write anything down what you want to do. Just go in fresh. And it actually made it after, round one, module one, everyone is quite rigid because they haven't played with each other. To Matt's point, there's some ego that we want to protect. And, Ali called me out right away, right in front of all my peers. There was major stress, but realizing that what made it so special to the audience was really recollecting those personal stories, modifying them to make them entertaining and replaying them at the event gave really authentic experience.
And Matthew, I mean, and I noticed what Ali talked about, that shift from like, and I even came up to you first in the beginning. There was a little problem with the Google Drive. I was standing there and I was watching the playbook. The playbook wasn't, and I messaged, and we had Roshan upstairs with Young Defenders of the North. We had a little bit of a technical glitch. And for those that are wondering what are we talking about, what we do is we give everyone these tablets that have the playbooks and roles and a bunch of information. And Matthew, and I see you, but you're cool, calm, collective. You're on your phone. I'm very observant, yes. And Matthew's a big guy. And I'm like, okay, is this guy going to be like, what the F? Because this is his first time here. And he's like, oh my God, here we go. This playbook doesn't work. But then your shift from like, welcome to module 1 to on, what did you do to make those changes that can help the viewers and us as well?
So I'm like Alex. I'm a huge worry about it ahead of time and prepare. I did role playing with AI. I looked at like financial and disclosure requirements. It was a CFO role, right? So it's not something I'm directly familiar with. I usually IT reports to CFO, what have you. I watched the Calgary just so I knew what to expect. Like, how is this? What's my role going to look like? I did a lot of prep, so I felt prepared in the moment. But it took the first session to really see how everyone played the role and how this, where it was safe to ad hoc, sort of throw my own personality in and play the role. I tend to be someone who can dominate a conversation, so I wanted to sort of sit back and watch things play out, give people space. And then when I felt it was appropriate to sort of add energy to the room or really double down on what I think a CFO would do in a situation like this, then I took the opportunity. But it's throughout your career, you have these moments where you have this imposter syndrome where you want to make a good impression, you don't feel like you know what you're doing, but the reality is nobody does, right? And the more you expose yourself to a situation like this and come out on the other side, the easier it is to do it again. And so, I've had a lot of opportunity to get in uncomfortable situations and realize that you're going to survive and get the next day. So part of that played into this as well, is that I didn't really have anything on the line, really, aside from my own ego and my own reputation, but I felt safe in that space.
And a crisis is one of those things, those moments, right? Doesn't matter if you're a parent and you're dealing with a crisis, or there's an emergency and there's blood involved, or there's something happening that is of significance and critical importance that can cost lives, money, and cause major problems. You have to play different roles. You have to deal with whatever's happening at that time and step into that different role, whether it's a CFO or a CHRO or a CIO or a CTO or a CEO, to not only just empathize and go back and forth, because the empathy is huge. And I'm sure from a CFO role now, you report into the CFO, you're able to maybe see things differently the other way around. We try to do that all the time, but running this role and playing that role, what is one thing that you learned about the CFO and how he or she has to deal with the CISO or the CIO or the CTO?
For a situation like this, in my experience, the CFO takes an important leadership role. They generally have a lot of the interaction with the board. They usually have technology reporting them in some way. They manage risk. And so we've all worked under face leadership, I'm sure, and we've all worked under collaborative sort of face leadership. And the best leaders that I've ever been under, when shit hits the fan, are the ones that are calm. But a good leader knows what the team needs in any given moment. Sometimes they need a hard hand. Sometimes they need pressure. And sometimes they need a calm voice. And so both are necessary. And I swung one way and you can swing another just for effect. But behind closed doors is different than inside of a mixed audience like this. In a real event where the company is suffering, people's jobs are on the line, safety may be an issue, how you interact with the broader team is going to be different than how you interact with the board or the executive. And you need to, the reality is there's going to be pressure, right? And so it's important to exhibit that in some sense in this simulation.
That's amazing. And Roshan, one of the things that you had to do was build out and paint out the picture with Young Defenders of the North, young people. And one of the things I find is when we're young, how we deal with crisis shapes us as we get older. one of the things I love to do is role play on crisis. I'm always thinking, whether I'm in a restaurant, I'm looking around 360, 720, 980, whatever the number is, 30,000 feet, 5,000 feet, one, micrometer. And I'm going, if something was to happen, what would I do in this situation? How do you, with Young Defenders of the North, you're painting out, a crisis, a scenario, and they got a hackathon, and they got a, how do you relate to them about it, and what do you see from them on how they deal with crisis, young people?
So I think the thing is, when you're hosting a hackathon or even when you're doing a tabletop exercise, you kind of have to decide how technical you're going into it. So last year, what I realized was that the students were very willing to learn, and they're very, and one thing that we do is we relate the Young Defender scenario to what's happening downstairs in Operation Defend the North, the main session room. And we always start off every Young Defenders Day by taking the kids down to the simulation room and having them kind of just observe what's happening and kind of see the tension that's going on there. And, Ali eases it by giving them a quick shout out, and then they feel like the stars of the day. But I need them to feel the tension, right? Because when they walk into this, they're kind of just like, oh, this is just a fun little thing, and which it is. But, these are also, and a lot of the students are actually in cyber courses already, which is a really cool thing that high school can offer that already. But, when they step into this role of figuring out what's going on and figuring out how to get there with not a lot of knowledge, right? They're just starting off learning what's happening. It's so important to have people there, and one of the most important things that I include in Young Defenders is mentors, right? People that are walking around and making sure that the Young Defenders know what they're doing if they ever need help. Obviously, there's a fun little gag we do where they have Monopoly money and they can pay their mentors to give them advice or not. But that's kind of what's happening on the main stage, right? You guys are the mentors, and everyone else are the Young Defenders, and you're walking the audience through what would happen if there was a crisis. Even though it's a simulation, these are conversations that you don't really get unless you're in it in the moment, right? Yeah. So the Young Defenders are just as they're basically doing the exact same things what you guys are doing down there, but just on a different degree. But yeah.
Yeah, and speaking of these different degree things and what Matthew just spoke about, so everyone knows. I mean, I was rooting for the Blue Jays, but I know nothing about hockey. The sport I love is cricket. So one of my favorite cricketers, his name is Faf du Plessis, a South African cricketer, right? And
what's his name?
Faf du Plessis. And he's written a book. I think it's called Under Fire or something like that. And whether it's in the book or in one of the interviews, that's very interesting, right? Like he's this cricketer who has come into the post-apartheid South Africa, and there's still a lot of racism playing out and a lot of ageism, blah, blah, blah. The book's very interesting, but he says something which I think I really internalized after I read the book and also followed his interviews. My role in ODTN is, I'm technically leading the whole thing. But Faf says that leadership is not about taking charge. It's about taking care of those who are in your charge. My job is to take care of making sure Shrey can get what he needs to get out. Alex can get what he needs to get out. And then making sure that I'm taking care of them, because I know that VP of technology who's all of a sudden become this rude asshole, he can say what he has to say, but I can take care of him also and give him that space to say it. At the end of the day, you have to take care of all of these individuals who are part of your team who have the expertise to deal with this situation, but you got to manage it with care. And for me, you can have all of the playbooks that you want, but it truly manifests itself in the behaviors that you see at the table. And when you get those individuals who you realize cannot work with other people, don't let others talk, are putting others down consistently, are pointing blame at others all the time, that gives you the kind of insight you need. So for me, one of the things that I tell a lot of people when I invite them also to come to ODTN, I had someone in Ottawa say, Ali, I'm not technical. Should I come out? I'm like, absolutely come out. And they walked out with this idea of, I lead a team. I don't need to know everything, but I need to take care of those members so that they can express themselves and do what they need to do best. So for me, that's a huge takeaway from Operation Defend the North. You could be a chair of Operation Defend the North and only know how to spell cybersecurity. That's fine. but you know how to take care of people in a scenario, and that's key.
That's very powerful. And Alex, one of the things you had the opportunity to do, which was really cool, and I know you and I have not had a debrief, so this is our first like official live debrief, is you were with us in Ottawa, you were with us in Calgary, you were with us in Vancouver, and then you were before, and you're going to be with us in Toronto soon. Going from city to city, especially going back home to Ottawa, right? That's I know sentimental to you as well. And then going to Calgary and Vancouver, and what Ali's talking about is taking care of people. Because one of the roles you're chaos engineer, but in a way you're also taking care of people as well. How do you reflect on what Ali's saying?
Well, if you zoom out, I think Matt also alluded to it as well, is like, a good leader does take care of their people, and to zoom into an actual incident, depending on the framework you look at, there's a few different roles, but incident responder is typically that technical person, and incident handler, or there's some other clever names for it, but the incident handler is somebody that is much more focused on the people and in the communication piece. And to earlier points, like these things, a proper incident is actually a lot of parallel activities that crisscross all at once. And we do want to create that in these Operation Defend the North, but that adds a level of complexity from a production perspective, but stay tuned. But having that individual that is caring about the people as well. And the SANS course 504, I think, it has a whole section on like a go bag, and that was like a decade ago, so maybe they've even added like a little bit more on the soft side, but a go bag that had food and probably Starbucks cards and deodorant and other things that like are there so that the people can focus on the job at hand and not having to worry about feeding themselves and whatnot.
What advice would you give? And I know we're a couple of minutes left, so I want to kind of wrap this up with some advice on leadership, because that's where we've kind of landed in a unique way. Leadership in the time of crisis. If this is for everyone, I'd love to hear from everyone. But what do you think the definition of that is? How do you lead in crisis? What are those 3-4 attributes that you would say are important? Let's go, Roshan. Ladies first.
I was just going to say, I think one thing that everyone is, and I think Matthew mentioned it earlier, and one thing that everyone's kind of saying right now is a safe environment. So one thing that I was joking around with one of the speakers about was, I was like, I promise this is not a humiliation ritual. I know that you're coming unscripted, but you're in a safe environment. We have our moderators as much as they can turn on each other in the simulation. They're there to help you and guide you and make sure that you're not looking. The point is not for you to look stupid. The point is for you to learn while also teaching everybody else. So I think a safe environment is one of the big ones.
There's two things that jumped out at me right away. One is presence, and understanding the impact you have on your team, but also in the room, and being intentional about that, because it can drive really important outputs and effect. And the other is actually being able to make a decision. Like in a situation like a cybersecurity breach, you don't have good information, but a decision is absolutely required. And that was evident as we went through the simulation. And so you need to potentially, depending on your role, be the individual that collects the information, hears the room, facilitates conversation, and then makes a decision and plots a course forwards, right? And that will get something resolved, because the decision is better than action, even if it's not the best decision. And for us to move forward with something that's as fluid and uncertain as a security breach, that is what separates, I think, true leaders from participants.
I like that.
Yeah, that was beautiful. And I got a couple of people, I mean, they put some thoughts in here, but let's go to Alex.
One thing, well, that's the biggest challenge. One thing I would like, what I think would be really relevant here is like that concept of like human error is a bit of an oxymoron. And when you're looking at a breach, it's never conducive or productive to be starting to look for blame. Yes, Bob clicked on an email and now the company's offline, but that is a systemic problem as far as I'm concerned. It's not just that Bob clicked the email, but that he was not unable to do protect the company and things like that. And it's really important that once we are debriefing, to still not look at the incident on a blame perspective, but actually what systems failed that resulted in the last chain being a human making a bad decision.
The human making a bad decision. James.
I think for me, it's coming back to everything has to come back to a singular purpose. So, that includes, helping your staff, watching them, make sure you're maintaining, that they're being looked after. Your purpose is to bring the organization back to knowing good as quickly as possible, right? So everything you're doing, whether it's, personnel decisions, whether it's, who are you calling in and how are you communicating, always comes back to that. So as long as you can grade what you're doing against that, I think that's where you'll succeed. But I find that, when you get into situations where you don't do that, where you're in an incident and you start doing something and you don't bring it back to, well, why are we doing this? Does this come back to what we're trying to accomplish? That's where you get lost in the weeds and you lose precious time, or you miss things, or you burn people out too.
Yeah. One point I want to make too, a lesson I've learned along the way, is that leadership and management are not interchangeable. A good manager is not necessarily a good leader, and a good leader could absolutely be a terrible manager. And you need both in this instance. You need solid management and you need strong leadership. 100%. And so for anyone in the audience here listening to this who aspire to be responsible, you need both attributes, and you may be strong in one and deficient in the other. But some of the things that we discussed here are strong management attributes, but also some of them are strong leadership attributes, and they're not necessarily something that comes along for the ride.
Take that, yeah. If you want me to chime in, Maddie, very quickly, from a leadership standpoint, I think time is the lock and timing is the key. In this incident, there's so many times someone online will say, well, find out if we have backups. But the timing isn't right to ask that question right now, because the SOC or the resources that I have are engaged in something else. I want to unlock that door to know what my backups look like, but the timing just isn't right. If you know your timing, you can lead very well during an incident. And you have to have your wits about you, because it's very, very easy. That CEO who kept going, I trust our vendors. Timing, read the room. This wasn't the time or the timing to have any of these things. You have to have that balance really well understood in these crisis situations. Otherwise, I always, in my classes, I always go back to, and I know it's not the best example and it can be a bit triggering, but Malaysian Airlines, when it disappeared, if you looked at the initial press conferences, they were trying to answer everything. And it's not the right timing for it. You don't know certain things, hold off on that. So I think that was one of my key takeaways from this roadshow.
It's one of the things that Alex brought up is humans making bad mistakes, and in times of crisis, this is something that's obviously common. It happens quite a bit, and it is strong leadership, as Matthew pointed out, and good management that allows those crises to pass, and then you learn from it, and you get better and stronger. We're at the top of the hour. I want to thank Matthew for joining us. Hopefully, we'll have you back. Actually, there's a question, open question. You could say yes, you could say no. Would you come back to Operation Defend the North of Vancouver?
Yeah, of course, absolutely, love to.
Amazing. That's awesome. That's good to know. I mean, he could have said no, and that would have been horrible. This is live.
Just end the whole thing right here. That's it.
I'll edit that out.
And for Alex, I know we'll see you next week, but we'll be seeing you soon as well. So thank you for joining us, James in Calgary, thank you again, and we'll be seeing you in Toronto. For those that are going to be in Toronto, both Alex and James will be here. Rashawn, we'll see you on ODTN News.
Yes, sir.
Ali, thank you.
No, you can't just go away like that. Listen, now people need to know one other thing about behind the scenes or debriefing, whatever you want to call it. In Vancouver, there was this one night we had a cyber cook-off. And it was, who was that? It was Alex, it was Vivek, and they cooked us the South Asian vegetarian dish, and it was amazing. So all of that to say, Maddie, before I show up for the 2 days leading to ODTN Toronto, I need to know the menu in advance because the wait is killing me. And James, as soon as you land here, we're taking you to this place called Gerrard Street, where there's this restaurant there, which we don't know how they pass the safety test, but the food is amazing. So, Maddie, I need the menu. And second, we got to get one of your Uber Blacks to take James to Gerrard Street.
That sounds awesome.
So, thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We'll see you next week on Operation Defend the North, the briefing. Everyone have yourself a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening. And thank you to our guests and who I call family for spending the hour with us.
Anytime.
A pleasure.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
See you in the future.